It's Tuesday morning, and the product team calls a meeting. On the agenda, a new idea for the company's app. Maybe it's something users have been requesting for months, like a dark mode, or maybe a new payment option to improve conversions. The discussion begins. Hello everybody, and welcome back to the Tech Odyssey podcast. I'm your host, Mike, and today we are going to take a trip through something every developer is part of, but most people outside the tech rarely get to see. And this is how code actually travels from an idea all the way to production. You've probably heard the terms deployments, continuous integrations, continuous deployment pipelines, DevOps, but what do they really mean? And what does the journey look like from the moment a feature gets written down in a ticket to the moment it's live in your favorite app? That's exactly what we're covering today. We'll follow the journey of a feature, meet all the players involved, explore the bottlenecks, share some war stories from bad deployments, and look at the tools that make this whole thing pipeline run. And here is the fun part. We'll also compare how a small startup does this versus a big enterprise. Because trust me, the difference is massive, and someone could say it's actually night and day. So let's jump in. Initially, let's set the scene. It's Tuesday morning, and the product team calls a meeting. On the agenda, a new idea for the company's app. Maybe it's something users have been requesting for months, like a dark mode, or maybe a new payment option to improve conversions. The discussion begins. Product managers talk about why this feature matters, the problem it solves, how it ties to business goals, and maybe even some metrics that they want to move. Then, the developers, designers, and QAs start chiming in, and questions start flying around. How will this impact existing screens, for example? Do we need a backend change for this? How will users actually test this in beta mode? That's the start of the requirement gathering phase. This is where abstract ideas start taking a more concrete shape. At this point, there is usually a lot of back and forth between product and engineering. The technical team digs deeper to understand the exact behavior of the new feature, challenge certain assumptions, or propose alternatives that make more sense technically while still achieving the business goals. Because, let's not forget, this is a balancing act. It's about finding that sweet spot between what's ideal for the product and what's realistic for the system. Once the requirements are concrete and understood, the design session can begin. If the feature involves a new user interface, for example, UX designers start sketching some mockups, explore how the new flow should look like and how it should feel like. Meanwhile, the architects and the tech leads start looking at the bigger picture. They design how data should flow and which system patterns will make the feature work reliably without breaking what's already there. They also think about things like resilience, performance, and scalability in order to make sure that the system stays fast and stable even under pressure. And of course, let's not forget that they have to balance all that with cost and complexity because in the real world, every technical choice comes with a price tag, a trade-off, let's say, whether it is in terms of infrastructure or more maintenance or more developer time. Now, once the requirements are clear, the ticket finally gets created, usually in a ticketing system like Jira. That's when the feature officially enters the development pipeline. It's now something tangible that engineers can actually start working on. At this stage, the team also tries to estimate the effort, how many days or story points it might take to build, test, and deliver. These estimates are there to help product managers plan upcoming sprints and prioritize what gets shipped first. Once the ticket is created, and it's ready and it's prioritized, the development work can begin. And this is the moment where the idea moves from the planning mode to the execution mode. A developer picks up the task and creates a new branch in Git. A new branch in Git is basically just a safe space to make changes without affecting the main code. From there, they start writing code, connecting APIs, updating the database, making sure that everything works together. Each change is saved with a commit, which is nothing but a small snapshot that shows how the feature is taking shape step by step. When the implementation feels complete, the developer opens a pull request, which is basically saying, hey team, I think my code is ready, can someone take a look? And this triggers the code review process. This is where teammates basically examine the changes. For example, is the code right? Is the logic what we agreed? Is the code readable and maintainable? Does it follow the team's best practices? It's a pre-check system apparently that keeps quality high and knowledge shared across the team. Now, once the pull request gets approved, the continuous integration, continuous delivery, or else CI/CD pipeline kicks in. And this is nothing but an automated system that builds the code, runs the test, and ensures nothing breaks unexpectedly. If everything passes, the code is merged into the main branch, which then triggers the deployment pipelines that push the changes into the staging environments and eventually to production, which is the real environment that users actually interact. But even after deployment, the work is not actually over. Now, the spotlight shifts to monitoring and observability. Dashboards light up, metrics start streaming in, and alerting systems stand by, ready to flag anything unusual. Whether it's a spike in errors, or a sudden slowdown, or a failed integration. Because apparently in production, anything can happen. And the faster you detect it, the smaller the blast radius is. That's the difference between a smooth rollout and a late night incident that can ruin everybody's weekend. And that, in a nutshell, is the life cycle of a feature. But of course, it's not just about the code, it's about the people, and I explain exactly what I mean. Shipping code is a team sport, so we should take a little bit of time to talk about the roles involved in this process. First of all, we have product managers who decide what gets built. Second, we have developers who actually write the feature. Then we have QA engineers who actually test it, making sure that it works and it doesn't break everything else. And then you have DevOps, or platform engineers, who actually own the pipelines and the infrastructure. And in larger companies, you can also have security reviewers, compliance officers, and sometimes even release managers. In a startup, of course, one or two people might wear all these hats. In an enterprise, it can feel like an assembly line with handoffs between each role, and let me tell you, neither of them is better. It's just about different priorities. One is optimized for speed, and the other one is optimized for safety. And that brings me to the next hot topic, which has to do with the bottlenecks. Now, if all of this sounds smooth, let me tell you, it almost never is. Some of the biggest bottlenecks you'll see in real teams include the following. Waiting for code reviews, which sometimes you have PRs sitting there for days before anyone looks at them. Merge conflicts, when two developers change the same code in different ways. When you have to deal with flunky tests, which is tests that fail randomly even though nothing is wrong. And of course, in big enterprises, you have approvals. Layers and layers of approvals. Chain advisory boards, extra layers of sign-off, and sometimes you even have scheduling deployment windows. These bottlenecks are not just annoying, they can actually kill momentum. And managing them well is what separates high-performing teams from average ones. And then you have the infamous war stories. Ask any developer you want about Friday deploys, and you'll probably get a horror story. Deploying Lay on a Friday, right before the weekend, is like a tempting fate. Something breaks, and suddenly you'll be spending all your Friday night on a call rolling back. Maybe it's that time that a Friday deployment slipped through with a typo inside the config file, it crashed the app and forced the team to debug until 2 a.m. to restore the service, or maybe another time when a feature flag that was meant to disable a new payment module failed to toggle off, causing double charges and a frantic weekend rollback. The truth is, every team has scars from these moments, and those scars usually lead to better practices, more automation, safer rollouts, and lessons learned the hard way. And now, let's talk a bit about the tools that make this whole thing work. Behind the scenes, all of this runs on a stack of tools. GitHub or GitLab for version control, Jenkins and GitHub Actions for CI/CD pipelines, Docker and Kubernetes for containers and orchestration, Kafka and other messaging systems in order to handle data at scale, and of course observability with Prometheus, Grafana, Splunk or Datadog. These tools are the backbone of modern architecture. Without them, our delivery pipeline will just slam to a complete stop. And now that we've talked about the life cycle of a feature, the process, the people, the tools, and the struggles, let's wrap up with a quick look at how this plays out in a startup versus an enterprise. And here is where it gets interesting. At a startup, the process is usually lean and fast. A developer codes, runs a few tests, merges, and deploys directly. Speed is everything, and even if that means breaking things sometimes. In an enterprise though, you've got layers of processes, approvals, scheduled deploy windows, long test cycles, everything. It's slower, but it's safer, because these are customers, regulators, and billions of dollars at stake. The contrast is actually fascinating. One is optimized to move fast, and the other one is optimized for stability. And both approaches make sense in their own world. So, next time you see a new button in your favorite app, just remember, it probably started off as a ticket. It survived code reviews, it survived tests, conflicts, and late-night deploys before finally arriving in your hands. Behind every feature, there is a team of people, a mountain of tools, and a lot of invisible effort that makes tech look easy on the surface. So thanks for joining me on this behind-the-scenes journey of how code actually ships. I am Mike, and I'll see you in the next episode here on the Tech Odyssey podcast, where we'll keep exploring the world of tech, one story at a time.